Welcome into the Gashouse Gang, guys. Always great to have you. And, of course, the Gashouse Gang brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling and Game Day Men's Health. You can find them at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Bernie, Miklasz, Kevin Wheeler hanging out with you. Bernie, we're almost there, man. 9 days until opening day. We're almost there.
Yeah, and the roster stuff is, just about been decided. I mean, there's not a lot
Pretty close, yeah.
Yeah, not a lot of suspense left, right? And there's a couple big competitions still, and there's the 6-man rotation talk. So we can get into that, but I'm looking forward to it. And one of the reasons, Kevin, is it's just, we've all talked about like spring training stats, okay, and what do they mean? And what I've been telling people that visit my YouTube channel and leave comments, because they're very concerned about spring training stats, which I get, whether I agree with them or not. But my thing over the last, the last week or so has been like, opening day's like right around the corner. We don't have to worry about spring training stats because the reality arrives on March the 27th.
Yes.
That's when you get the answers. So don't lose sleep over spring training stats when opening day is now, what did you say, 9 days away?
Yeah.
Because we're going to get the real stuff, and that's all that matters, right?
I mean, that's why I don't stress about it. I mean, you take in the information from spring. Mm-hmm. It's not that it's entirely meaningless. It just doesn't tell the whole story by itself. I think we'll talk about Nolan Arenado a little bit later on.
Sure.
Like his spring stats stink, and they've been bad. That's only part of the concern. It's, how hard is he hitting the ball? How often is he hitting it hard? Like all of those things combined matter, but they don't matter more than what happens starting next week, right? Like we could be celebrating a guy like Victor Scott, and then he could go 0 for 20 to start the year, and then we're going, well, what do we do? Like, right. I mean, 2 years ago, Jordan Walker destroyed spring training for the most part. We know he slowed down at the end of it, but his numbers were amazing. And then he started struggling. So, like, we know that it can go either way. That's why it's important that we talk about things, but we don't have to freak out. We don't have to be making final decisions on what we think a team or a player is going to be. So I think that's kind of where we are now in this last week of spring training games. They're going to be wrapping up the spring schedule on, at least in Florida on Sunday, and they'll be playing in Memphis on Monday night. But like, the things that are most concerning now, the things that you want to keep, keep an eye on the most would be the health of players, right? So like today, Mason Wynn scratched from the lineup today with right wrist soreness. Most likely not a big deal. You obviously want to err on the side of caution now. You'd think, sometimes they'll always say this, and they probably will say this later, that if it was the regular season, he would have played anyway. But whether that's true or not, that's the stuff that worries me most in the final week or so, is somebody going down.
Yeah, and it was good to see Jordan Walker, leg out a double yesterday, because let's face it, he's got a lot on the line this year, and so does the team with him. And, missing 10 or 11 days, whatever it was, because of that knee injury or knee strain, he missed reps, and that's kind of a situation. It's like, man, I wish the guy would have gotten a full spring of reps without disruption. So it's good to see him kind of jump back in there in his second game back, I guess. You could see he ran well and he hit the ball well. So I'm like you. Yeah, this is kind of hold your breath time and hope that nobody gets hurt in a way that would impact them or the team going forward. Because remember what happened at the end of spring training, final exhibition game. Newt Bart got hurt. Carlson got hurt. They pretty much all got hurt. All the outfielders, and so it was kind of like a late disaster. So no more of that stuff. No more of that stuff.
All right, so let's jump in. We got a bunch of things. We're going to try to go through as many as we can because there's a lot to get through. But we've all talked about it. I know you guys did yesterday too. The center field position, and the real third man who's joining us on YouTube throws the question in there, said Siani over Scott would be a sign of dementia. Therefore, I refuse to believe it. I like the last part. This is a fascinating thing, right? I mean, I know you have thoughts on this. I haven't had a chance to get on and get into this because it sounds
go for
like,
it, man. Yeah, take the mic and run, baby.
It sounds like from the reporting from Derek Gould and Katie Wu, who are down there, that the team is leaning towards Scott going to Memphis. If that is so they can play Siani, then I agree with the real third man. That's a sign of brain damage. I don't know if I go with dementia, but I would go brain damage. That's a sign of brain damage. They have to stop with that. Now, the other possibility, and it's what we're seeing today with Newt in center, is that this is more about making sure that Burleson and Gorman don't get stuck on the bench. Because if you play it out, Newt in center, Donovan in left, Gorman at second, Burleson DH, those guys are all everyday players against right-handers in that scenario. So I understand that. And if that's what happens, I might still have questions because Victor Scott's doing everything you're asking him to do. He's improved his defense. He's hitting the ball hard. He's doing all the things you asked him to do. And by the way, Mo said as much to me 2 weeks ago on Sports on a Sunday Morning. So the team sees it too. And he's one of the few exciting players on this team. This team can be boring and they need some excitement. So I'm not saying it automatically makes sending Scott down the right move, but if that's the alignment and Siani is truly just a bench guy and a defensive sub, then I don't think it's brain damage. I think it's maybe just a conservative approach.
I agree with you. I said this in a video I made yesterday, which is if it's a Siani Scott thing, the whole idea that this by now would even be a competition is insulting to anyone who has even childlike intelligence. Wait a minute. You're deciding between two guys. One of them has never hit at any level of professional baseball. Never. That would be Siani. Scott, yeah, some problems last year, overexposed early in his major league career. But you look at 2023, the season he had, I think it was AA in Memphis. It was absolutely fantastic. Siani has never come within even 5 states of that, if we're like talking about distance. Seriously. And you look at, Siani this spring, I don't even know what his bat average is, but I know was like 114 or 116. I also know that his hits have pretty much been seeing eye singles or bloops.
Yeah.
And also all Victor Scott has done is just smash baseballs the whole time. He's been their best hitter in camp. And this is a time I think spring training stats should matter, because if you are a team and you are the manager of that team and you're selling the idea that is a competition between Scott and Siani, okay, game on. Spring training stats matter at that point because you're saying it's a competition. Well, if it's a Siani Scott choice and the choice is Siani, it gives me no pleasure to say this, but once again, the Cardinals have lied or they have not told the truth. However you want to say it.
Maybe we could say they BS'd us.
They fibbed it, right? Because if it was a real competition, the competition would be over and the winner would be obvious, right? So here's the thing. Well, again, to your point, they're BS. Don't say it's a competition unless you mean it, okay? They must think their fans are idiots. And by the way, their fans are not idiots.
No.
Because they sell this stuff all the time and then they backtrack from it or they contradict themselves and they lose more credibility. I'm candidly speaking here. Now, I'm with you though, because at the very beginning of this, before they went to spring training, I think a lot of us felt, I know people that comment on my, YouTube's felt this way. If you're trying to optimize an offense that really stank last year, right?
Yeah.
Well, and the outfield in particular was awful offensively as a group. Well, your best shot at having a good offense from your outfield is Donovan, Nootbaar in center, and Walker, with the hope that Walker will bounce back.
Right.
So that's your optimum chance at of realizing your potential offensively among your outfitters. That's your best shot. So I don't have a problem with that either. I really don't. Right. Because you know why? I'd be a hypocrite because I endorse that idea, Donovan and Nootbaar left and center. I endorsed that idea even before spring training started. So yeah, we'll see what they do. But whatever they say they're going to do, chances are they're going to kind of zigzag again. So who the hell knows? Right?
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. All right, let's turn this, since we're on the spring performance thing, and we can just do it. This can be quick because again, Nolan Arenado is a veteran. We're not going to say you lose your job or that, we all panic because of a bad spring, but I mean, he did just finish a stretch before he got in the lineup today where he's 3 for his last 24. But he was 2 for 3 on Saturday, which means he was 1 for 21 before that. And he's taking a couple of days, or took a couple of days to go to the backfields to hit. So he get a lot of at-bats. I think people misunderstand what that is. You go back there and get 10, 12 at-bats instead of just getting 3 in a game. So you just get more repetitions. But I think that's a window into how he's feeling right now. If he's wanting to do that, that means he's not feeling right. So let me ask you, if we get into the season, do we not have to treat him the way he performs at this point and not just give him the honor of, well, you're Nolan Arenado, so you bat 4th, or you're Nolan Arenado and you get to play 155 games? I mean, do they have, I'm not saying from day one, right? I mean,
right.
You're a veteran, we're not going to judge you on your first 8 games, but we can't just say your name's Arenado, you bat 4th, right? I mean, he might deserve to bat 7th. And if that's the case, that's where he needs to be.
I totally agree, and I think you give some leeway early in the season. But if you're getting into mid-May, late May, and he's a drag on the offense, I think you have to adjust accordingly. One thing Ollie Marmol needs to do, and I respect a lot of the way he runs the team. I'm not a serial Ollie basher. I'm not. I defend him and praise him when it's warranted. Mm-hmm. But one thing he's going to have to stop doing is capitulating to veterans. We've seen pitchers kind of dictate how it's going to be, and we saw him stay with Goldschmidt in the 2-hole last year way too long when it was obvious that Goldie was having a really rough season. Ollie finally changed that batting order, but it took him, in my opinion, way too long. And Arenado will be another test case. And I wouldn't even say that unless, Arenado was coming off the season that he had last year. I'm one of the people in the somewhat optimistic camp thinking that he's going to have a bounce back. And I'm not alone on this. I mean, Baseball Prospectus thinks, their version of OPS plus, let's say, they think he's going to improve by 15, 16%. I know Dan Zimborski thought that he would have about a 420, the Zips forecast, like a 425 slugging percentage. I keep bringing up, anybody that slugged 433 at Busch Stadium last year has got some life in his bat. Yeah. So really, I mean, it's amazing. So I still think he can, be better than he was last year. But if he's not, he comes out of the gate and it's awful. Well, the manager's going to have to just do what's best for the team. And, that'll be a test of Ollie Marmol's credibility. I hope it doesn't come to that, but that'll be a credibility check.
That's Bernie Miklasz. I'm Kevin Wheeler. This is the Gashouse Gang, brought to you by Game Day Men's Health and Saliga Heating and Cooling. We're going to talk 6-man rotation in a second, Bern, but first tell us about Saliga.
I would love to, my friend. Saliga Heating and Cooling has been around since 1927. It's a American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer. They'll take good care of you and your family, like the Miklashes the last 16 seasons. Well, we'll say seasons. There's 4 of them in each year, right? And they'll take great care of you. We found them to be, in terms of their integrity, 100%. Professionalism, knowledge, dependability, 100%. They'll also look to save you money rather than trying to sell you stuff. Isn't that what you want? Somebody that's going to play it straight, and you don't ever have to worry if they're being shady or something. So you can rest easy when you call Saliga Heating and Cooling and find out about their Priority Club. In addition to all the great work they do, the Priority Club is a maintenance program. In our experience as members, not only save us money, but give us peace of mind because we know everything's working and everything's safe. So for the phone number and everything else you want to find out, go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com, SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. Thank you.
All right, let's dive in on the 6-man rotation conversation that was brought up to Ollie Marmol yesterday, and he did mention they were thinking about that, or at least talking through what that would look like. And on past versions of this, I'm not a huge fan of it as a general rule, but that doesn't mean there aren't times where it makes sense. And based on what we're seeing this spring, Bernie, I actually think it makes sense.
I do too.
When you look at I'm not in a big hurry to make sure that Miles Miklasz starts every 5th day, or Steven Matz. Eric Fetty is coming off a season where he carried a little bit more workload than he probably had in the past. Andre Palante has not been a full-time starter in the big leagues for a very long period of time. Is he going to be able to just go give you a $190 or a $180? And Sonny is behind. I mean, he's not like, I'm not, we had here, Ken sent us a message worrying about Sonny, or at least asking us about whether or not Sonny has the same kind of situation as Nolan Arenado. I would say no, because Sonny's coming off of a really good year and Arenado is not. But in terms of taking care of him, they're not going to push him early, which would make using Michael McGreevy in that kind of role make quite a bit of sense. Now, they have a bunch of off days the first couple of weeks, so maybe there's some finagling and things along those lines. But this has me thinking, Bern, that might not be a terrible idea.
The thing about Sonny Gray is I give him the benefit of the doubt because I've covered way too many spring trainings to where I have conditioned myself totally not to overreact to spring training performance by veterans.
Right.
Because they're always working on something. We have no idea what they go into a start looking to do. Sometimes they're experimenting. Sometimes they're trying pitches they haven't used before. Sometimes they're trying to, change an arm slot. I mean, it's a project every time they go to the mound. Now, that said, specifically about Sonny Gray, over his final 14 starts last season, he had a 4.88 ERA. He was not the same pitcher. And listen, if you go to fielding independent ERA, it's better. It's better. So I want to point that out. It's a lot better. But still, there were some problems with home runs that could have been an outlier on the road.
Right.
You look at Sonny, and I think Sonny, I think there is a little bit of a question over him because even though he struck out 30% of the batters he faced, highest ever by a Cardinals starting pitcher, I didn't like the way that he finished the season. So yeah, there's a little question hanging overhead, but it doesn't mean that you give him the bum's rush. Oh wow, he had 3 bad starts. Well, we're going to have to pull him from the rotation. I mean, come on, let's keep our heads, okay? But I like the 6-man rotation on one condition, and it's an important condition. If a 6-man rotation, okay, other teams have a 6-man rotation. Let's talk about the Cardinals' possible version of a 6-man rotation, which is, well, we don't want to send McGreevy down, and we got some off days. Okay, we'll use him out of the bullpen. And then we'll put him in for, when the schedule's heavier, we'll put him in and let him start. And then we'll put him back in the bullpen. And then, down the road, look at this schedule. Yeah, we can put him in there to start. And then it's going to be, well, look at this schedule. That we have off days. So we could use him in the bullpen. I am sick and tired of these guys yo-yoing pitchers like Zach Thompson and Matthew Liberatore around. And it has not done those two pitchers any good. In fact, I would argue it has impaired their development. And are they really going to do this again? If they're going to do this again, well, McGreevy's the swing man. In other words, he's this year's Matthew Liberatore. I have no interest in that. I'd rather see him at Memphis.
Amen.
None.
The swing man Steven Matz should be the swing man.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, that'd be a perfect way to do it. You could even use Kyle Leahy in that kind of role.
Yeah.
Do not mess with the development of talented young pitchers by just doing this constant yo-yo with them. And I was looking at Liberatore last year, and some of the conditions when he made those bullpen starts, borderline irresponsible.
Yeah.
He made one of those bullpen starts with no day's rest. He
pitched the day before. Yeah.
Yeah. And he had a couple of those. So it's not fair to the players because what happens is some fans, not all, they start ripping the player. Oh, well, this Liberatore, David, what a terrible trade. He'll never be anything. The guy's never had a full opportunity to be a major league starting pitcher. And I would like to think that when Michael McGreevy becomes a starting pitcher for the Cardinals, he's going to be a starting pitcher and he's going to stay a starting pitcher and not be moved all over the place.
Yeah. You don't have to move just because you're the young guy.
Right. Thank you.
I mean, and that gets back to the thing we talked about earlier is most teams do it, but the Cardinals, I think, are exceptionally attached to it, which is veterans preference. They get preferential treatment, which in most cases is fine. But in this kind of case, it's just not. Keep the young guy where you want him to be because some of these guys are gone at the end of the year. They're not long-term projects, right? Some of these guys are about your long-term future. Now, I think Alan asks an interesting question. And he said, if they go to a 6-man rotation, could the starters stay in the games longer? Theoretically, yeah. Theoretically, you could say because they're all getting an extra day's rest, instead of 90 pitches and you're done, or we're going to start being careful with Sonny when he gets to around 90, which is kind of what they did last year. Mm-hmm. You could push it and go, you got another inning because you got an extra day off. So, yeah, that's the idea. You can't go, to me, this is my worry about the 6-man. You can't go to the 6-man and still have guys going 5 and dive because you're going to bury your bullpen.
Right.
You've got to make sure that some of those guys can give you more. And with the extra day's rest, you should be.
See, and that's my concern because they think they're smarter than everybody else. And so what they'll do is, like I mentioned earlier, they'll be able to slide McGreevy into a relief role when they have to, or when the schedule gives them the leeway to do that. See, they're going, oh, we're the Cardinals. We're smart, aren't we? Look at us. Look how clever this is. And, I hate to tell them not really. But anyway, they'll try to get cute with it because you're right. Because if you're not going to get innings out of your rotation, the bullpen's going to be stressed. But their answer to that isn't like, well, we'll shuttle guys up and down. No, their answer to that, I fear, will be, well, we can use McGreevy in relief too. Yeah, if you do that, you're messing with him. And I just hope at least Liberatore, thankfully, has remained healthy. But no one can convince me that this yo-yoing of Zach Thompson did not play a role in his physical issues that he's had to deal with the last couple of years. I got to believe it's a factor. I hope they don't do it to McGreevy.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating season for a lot of these reasons. I'm not sure I fully understand concerns about a quote unquote lack of depth at Memphis. I mean, to me at Memphis, you've got at least 2 guys on the 40-man in Graceffo and Hentz. Now, I don't think you want to put Hentz in a situation where he's got to carry a lot of innings, but for a spot start, for a guy.
I think he's going to Double-A to start.
He's going to Springfield.
Yeah.
Either way, he's on the 40-man.
Right.
And with Quinn Matthews being there too, I'm not sure that it's that crazy to be like, okay, if you have 6 guys that you're keeping and you've got at least 2 at Memphis and another one that can be a spot start guy with talent, even if you're not ready to give him 150 innings, he can still be a guy here and there. I don't know why that would lead to any kind of panic over, coverage. And they have other guys that pitch too, that are going to be in the rotation too, that are not that great, but they're still pitchers. They're still guys that can go out there and do it. And if you have the 6th man, well, you already have 6 in the big leagues. So if you had to go to a 5, fine, go to a 5, call up another reliever.
Yeah. And Bill from downtown, our friend, he points out, well, why can't they do that with Matz? And that's exactly right. Kevin Wheeler said that. It's exactly right. Why does it have to be the young guy?
Yeah, why not? Why not Miles once in a while? Now, again, a lot of that should probably depend on how well somebody's pitching, right?
Yeah, sure.
So if you take Palante, Miklasz, Matz, because you're not doing this with Fetty and Sonny, and you and I both agree you don't want to do that with McGreevy unless he's not pitching well. But in that case, send him to Memphis.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But if you're talking about the other 3, maybe if there's one that's struggling, they get that duty.
Yeah. Where does Palante fit in with all of this? Matt Pauley was talking yesterday when we did Gashouse Gang about, Palante's velocity had dipped. And I'm not sure if there's been a change in that, but I hope that that's not an issue.
Yeah, as long as he's not hurt, I don't think it is. Yeah. But put it this way, if he's not hurt, he shouldn't be knocked out of that rotation.
No, I agree.
I mean, he's probably got as strong a case as anybody based on performance. I mean, he's got a 3.66 ERA and 30 major league starts. That's not a guy that should have to sing for his supper. Again, unless there's something physical going on.
That's right. From May 29th to the end of the last season, he had the 10th best starting pitching ERA in the National League.
Yeah.
Case closed.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
right. Gashouse Gang, Bernie Miklasz, Kevin Wheeler with you here. Bernie, let's talk about one of the biggest position moves. And I think from my eyeball, and I don't see every game and every inning, but from what I've seen, both looking at what he's doing at the plate and what he's doing in the field, so far the move of Contreras to first base looks like a great idea. We know the goal is to get more at-bats and play more games, which you will do playing first compared to catching, even if you don't get hurt, because you're going to get at least a day or 2 off a week as a catcher, probably 2. You probably play like 4 out of 6 or 5 out of 7 in a week. Well, as a first baseman, it can be all of them. You can play all the games, and even DH when they want to give Burleson a day at first base. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this looks like with a guy that might be able to play 150 games for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, I want to preface this by saying I think most Cardinals fans are good with this. I mean, maybe they're taking a wait and see approach in terms of his defense. Like, they don't expect it to be up to the Goldschmidt level, but they want to see if it's at least respectable. I think he'll be respectable. And I also think he'll get better as the season goes along. But there is a segment of the fan base that is obsessed with Contreras. They just don't like him. That's my conclusion, because whenever they talk about, oh, I'm against this move or I'm against that, if it has anything to do with Contreras, they try to frame it along the lines of a baseball discussion, and they can't be serious. It can't seriously be a baseball discussion. So I always said, look, I have no problem when a person tells me, media, fan, whatever, I have no problem whatsoever. You say, you know what it is? I just don't like the guy. I don't know what it is. I just don't like him. Okay, at least you're being honest. But don't try to wrap it around a baseball discussion. Okay, don't be a phony. All right, that's my request. But I keep hearing from people, and again, I'm assuming it's a small percentage that think that moving him to first base was stupid and they shouldn't have done it. And they were coming up with all these reasons to justify that opinion, and none of it makes sense. The last two seasons, in fact, as a Cardinal, among major league right-handed hitters that have had at least 850 plate appearances, Wilson Contreras is tied for 10th in terms of weighted runs created plus. He's been the fourth best right-handed hitting batter in the National League, fourth best over the last two seasons. There's only one problem with that. And he's been the Cardinals, obviously, their best offensive performer the last two seasons. The only problem with that, in his 2 seasons as a Cardinal, he has averaged 425 plate appearances. You want that to be 525, 550.
Yep.
So what do you do when you have not only one but 2 young catchers you want to take a look at? Herrera,
one of them might be your cleanup hitter.
Yeah, Herrera and Pages, right?
Because Herrera can hit, man.
You know, with all due respect to like some of our friends in the past, like Herrera and Pages, we're not talking about like Gary Bennett or Chris Weeder, right? Weiter, what's his name?
Oh, Matt Weeder.
Matt Weeder. Yeah, what am I? Man, here I go. We're not talking about like your typical backup catcher, right? Both of these guys have a career. So by the way, your first baseman is playing for the Yankees now. So first base is wide open. What better way to cover first base by moving your best hitter to first base, which will give you an upgrade over Goldie in terms of last year. And also you'll get more at bats for Ivan Herrera. So with 2 moves, you're getting more offense in your lineup. And it isn't just the offense that Herrera can provide over, 100 games. It'll be more like what he'll provide over 145, 150 games, right? And Herrera, who had 265 roughly plate appearances last year, he'll get more than that this year. How in the hell can this be considered a bad move when you have an offense that stinks, okay? The last 2 seasons, it stinks, right? And you're making a move to put 2 of your best bats in the lineup more often. Your 2 best hitters last year. Only one problem with both of them. They didn't get enough at bats. How in the world anybody with a sane, rational outlook could look at this and say, well, this is just a bad move. I don't understand this. Well, if you don't understand this, you're not trying hard. You're not even trying to understand it. Do you want the Cardinals to have a better offense or not? Okay.
Yeah. Do you want more plate appearances for their best hitter? Because the answer to that should be emphatically yes.
And maybe Herrera, if he's not their second best hitter this coming season, he's going to be in the top 3 or 4. I think it's a good idea to get those guys in the lineup more often.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Oh, but I'd be crazy, of course, right?
Yeah, I think it was such a no-brainer. And look, Contreras isn't like 36-year-old Matt Wieters when he was here, right? I mean, who was young, he was older and all that. I mean, he's an athletic guy who moves well. Yeah, you know what? You're going to see some weird plays, especially early. There are going to be some plays you're like, well, that should have been made. And it's going to happen. You just have to accept that. But it's going to get better as it goes. And the bat plays, man. I mean, that's just, you don't want to stick him at DH because Burleson's not a good defender either. And I think Contreras' upside as a defensive first baseman is light years better than Burleson's because he moves better. He's used to scooping throws out of the dirt. He's used to things happening in 0.3 of a second. That's how long you have when you're catching and the pitcher lets go of the ball. You got 0.3 of a second to catch it, frame it, block it, throw it, do whatever. He's going to have a lot more time than that at first base. So again, I don't predict Gold Glove or anything, but I would say adequate would be at worst. I can't imagine it's going to be any worse than that. He's a good athlete. So why I don't understand it. To me, that was like the most obviously good move of the offseason. It's like, hey, let's keep this guy healthy and get more at bats from our best hitter.
And I'm also, already hearing, and I'll get ripped for like talking about the fans that the small percentage of them that whine, but whine about everything. It's only a small percentage, but they are out there and their opinions should be recognized. But already getting stuff like, oh, you just wait to see what Goldschmidt does with the Yankees. Like, in other words, like the Cardinals should have brought Goldschmidt back and signed him to a 2 or 3 year deal.
By the way, he's having back spasms right now. So,
well, the thing of it is, I would hope Paul Goldschmidt would have a great year or a good year for the Yankees. Number one, he's not the guy anymore. He's surrounded by really good talent. The pressure's off. Goldie's big problem sometimes is that he just puts way too much pressure on himself.
Yep.
Well, he can kind of ease into it. The other thing, people think that Yankee Stadium only benefits left-handed hitters. No, it benefits right-handed hitters too. And by the way, because I've had that said to me, well, he's a right-handed bat, so I don't know how much that'll, help him, but yeah, he'll probably be better there. Again, know thy team. Did you watch Paul Goldschmidt when he was in St. Louis or not? Did you see him go to the opposite field a lot? Did you see him hit opposite field doubles and home runs? Yeah. He's not a straight up pull hitter.
Yeah, gap to gap more often.
So it amazes me, and this applies to some media people too. So we're not taking ourselves out of it. But if you're gonna like make these declarations about something, kind of know what the facts are, and kind of know like if a guy is the 4th best right-handed hitter in the National League over 2 years before you say, well, I don't understand why they would, why do they need to get him in the lineup more often? Just know your team before you go spouting off nonsense.
Yeah. Pay attention. It always helps.
Yeah. So I'm all wound up now.
All right. Well, we'll calm down because we got some good stuff coming up here. It's the Gashouse Gang with Bernie Miklasz and Kevin Wheeler. Before we talk Blues, who've been playing pretty damn well, let's get a little bit more love for Saliga.
Saliga Heating and Cooling, I want you to take a look at the Priority Club. It's a maintenance program. They'll come to your home twice a year and to make sure everything's going great before the real hot summer. Your AC's working fine. They'll come back in the fall in preparation for the winter, make sure your heating system is working fine. And in our experience, it gives us a peace of mind because we know everything's working well. Or if there's a small problem, they catch it, they tweak something, they make a couple of adjustments, and it's no problem. Everything's running great. And so you get the peace of mind of knowing everything's running great, and you're going to be safe. And you also know the lifespan of your equipment is going to stretch out because regular maintenance does extend the lifetime of your equipment. So you'll save money as well. Anyway, for more information on that, this American Standard Heating Air Conditioning dealer, more information on Saliga Heating and Cooling, go to SaligaHeatingCooling.com. Thank you.
All right, so it's Bernie Miklasz and Kevin Wheeler with you on the Gashouse Gang, brought to you by Saliga, as you just heard, and my friends at Game Day Men's Health. You can find them at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. I'm going to be over there tomorrow for my weekly visit. Let's talk Blues. We left some time here, so I'm happy that we did because, there have been a couple of bumps here lately, but nothing major. But how about 9-2-2 over the last 13 games? These last couple of games, the offense has kicked in. In the month of March, you're getting a point per game from Kyrou and Holloway. You're getting significant offensive contributions from Shen and Neighbors and Robert Thomas. Like, this is what we all hoped it would be. And again, hopefully they just keep on rolling.
They will, and their best players are performing like their best players should. They're also getting tremendous contributions from some of the young guys. If you look at Dylan Holloway, you look at Balduke, and
he's another one.
You
4
look
goals
at
in the last 8 games.
You look at Holloway, you look at Balduke, you look at Jake Neighbors. The Blues are on an 8-2-2 stretch, and those 3 guys, none of them older than 23. Those 3 guys, Balduke, Neighbors, and Holloway, 17 goals and 13 assists between them. And then Thomas and Kyrou are playing great. Shen's playing great. Cam Fowler continues to play great. I think the Four Nations break, I think it helped Justin Falk. He looks alive since they came back from the break. But the thing of it is, and this really needs to be emphasized, because even though there were some disappointing stretches since they hired Jim Montgomery back on November the 25th, this team is dramatically transformed as a 5-on-5 hockey club. This is he took a team that at the time of the coaching change was one of the worst in the league, at just about the very bottom of the league in terms of a 5-on-5 play, goals for, goals against. And since Montgomery's taken over, playing at 5-on-5, and keep in mind, this includes some of those bad stretches they went on, right?
Yeah.
They are fifth. They're the fifth best team in the NHL in terms of their goal share at 5-on-5. So they're the fifth best 5-on-5 offense since the coaching change, and they're the third best defense in terms of goals allowed at 5-on-5. So you're playing on 5-on-5, which is the foundation of hockey. If you're in the top 5 in both goals for and goals allowed, you got a hell of a foundation set. And see, when you have that foundation set, you go through some hard times. As long as you stick to your foundation, and maybe your goaltenders get hot or a couple young guys start to score, that foundation will get you through the hard times, and you can come back out of it and play stronger. One of my favorite stats that I've come up with on this, when the Blues were being coached by Drew Bannister, right? This is 5-on-5 play. They were a -18, got outscored by 18 goals. With Monty as the coach at 5-on-5, they have outscored the other team by 27 goals. That is a 45-goal turnaround at 5-on-5. So I'm really happy to praise Braden Shen, all the young Blues, all the stars. Yeah. But let's understand, this actually started when the new coach took over. They are a tremendous team at 5-on-5 now. This is the best 5-on-5 hockey they've played since their Stanley Cup season.
Lord knows I've been the one that's skeptical. I'm just because they've done this for so many years, but you can see it. Even now, it's not just the look, but it's more of the result too, right? So the look has been different since the November hire. The results had that wave, but now we're getting longer stretches of good, and this stretch here has been phenomenal. And now, Bernie, and we'll close on this just because we're running out of time, but
sure,
the Blues after these last couple of games are now at an even goal differential, right? So of all the teams in the National Hockey League that are even or above, plus in the goal differential, every single one of them is in the playoffs right now except the Blues, and the Blues are barely out. So everybody that misses the playoffs is a negative. and if you're a positive team, and they may be by the end of the year, I think that would bode well. I mean, obviously, scoring more than you allow, but it's not a perfect thing to look at, but it's pretty clear right now that there's a line in the sand in the NHL. When you're below that even number, you're not a playoff team.
Well, since Monty took over, they're a +17, so they're well in the plus column.
Yeah, I mean, I know they're what are they now, plus 10 in the last 2 days?
Yeah, and then so they're one of the best. I think they're maybe top 5, in plus minus since he took over.
Yeah, since he took over.
And so the interesting thing too is they also have, according to Tankathon, they have the easiest schedule remaining in the National Hockey League, all teams. So I think they got a real shot at this. Got to get a point or two tonight at Nashville, and they got to beat, and they have to beat Vancouver Thursday at Enterprise Center.
That's the big one. And obviously, you've got 4 teams within 2 points. Vancouver, the Blues, the Flames, and the Utah Hockey Club. And both Utah and Vancouver, and actually in the Flames too, they all have games in hand. Just 1 each for Utah and Vancouver, 2 for Calgary. So getting 2 points against Vancouver would be massive.
Yeah, of all those teams you just mentioned, Money Puck gives the Blues the highest playoff probability, even with the games in hand. It's about 39%. And so they're in position to take this thing to get that second wild card. So, but they're going to have to continue to play the way they have been.
Fingers crossed. Wait,
Oh, yeah.
you couldn't see that very well on the camera. There we go. I'm trying to do this without making it look like I'm flipping people off. Fingers crossed is what that was. All right, Burn, great show, man. It's been a lot of fun. Everybody that tuned in, we love you. Thank you for doing this. Stay tuned. We might have some announcements related to the future of the Gashouse Gang and
What I'm hearing.
some other. Yeah. We had some meetings about it earlier today. We can't mention it yet, but just stay tuned because this might be getting a larger platform. Let's just put it that way.
All right.
And we may be expanding our sports platform as well beyond just the Gashouse Gang. So keep that in mind. Like and follow. Do all of that on YouTube. Do the same thing for the Bernie Show. Thanks, Burn. Good stuff. We'll
right,
talk
Wills.
to you later on. Everybody
care,
else, have yourselves a great day. This was the Gashouse Gang.